For the sake of the tale, my 27-year-old wife, M, cheated on me by seeing a friend of mine, J, who was also 27-year-old. A little background. We attended a friend's wedding when I was 22, and we first met. She was the bride's close friend, and I was the groom. They seated us at the same table so we could socialize. Her beauty really stunned me when I saw her for the first time. We discovered we had a lot in common when she sat down and we started talking. We hit it off right away. After a long conversation and food, we started dancing. We spent the entire night drinking and dancing. After sharing a kiss in the center of the dance floor, the bride and groom, who were our friends, approached us and inquired about the reason behind our separation. They couldn't wait to play matchmaker. We simply ignored it and continued with our evening. We didn't exchange numbers before we left, but a week or so later, I received a text from her asking to go out. The bride had given her my number. Naturally, I said yes, and the friendship developed. Aside from a few minor disputes, the relationship was wonderful. It was never anything serious, and we never actually argued. After 2 years of dating, I eventually asked her to marry me, and we were wed in less than a year. After a little over a year of marriage, everything fell apart on me. There were a few small things that were bothering me right before our first anniversary. She started to be more careful with her phone. Girls' nights increased in frequency, and we had very little sex life. She dismissed my concerns when I brought this up several times, saying that I was letting my fears get the better of me. I got colder and colder because she would keep going on as if what I was feeling and trying to say didn't matter to her. As I left for work, I stopped kissing her goodbye, and we seldom spoke except when something essential came up. I borrowed her laptop and phone one night while she was sleeping and quickly glanced through her emails, messenger applications, and text. I didn't find anything. I looked over her automobile after reading some accounts on this site. After taking her keys, I searched her car and discovered another phone. I wanted all the evidence for when I called her out, even though I knew right then and there what was going on. I didn't want her to say anything foolish like that. Like it had only occurred once. There was only one number on the phone when I combed through it. Every message is read by me. I printed off all of the messages and the photos from the phone, attached it to my computer, and spent the entire night looking up divorce attorneys. I reviewed the bios of several lawyers and emailed the one I liked the most. But since it was a Saturday, he wasn't in the office. I spent hours upon hours in my at-home office doing this. I immediately reached for my phone and typed the guy's number, since I wanted to know who he was. Who doesn't have Spectrum? That's why I wanted to call and pretend I was from Spectrum. However, Jay's contact appeared. It took me a minute to realize what was going on, but when I did, I lost it. My wife came to check on me while I was screaming and swearing in my workplace. I told her to get the F out when I saw her. After shutting the door, she proceeded to our room. I had never talked louder than usual or cursed at my wife. I didn't leave my office once that entire day. I was just looking at the wall and fuming silently. I asked the groom from the wedding, one of my friends, if he would like to go out for a drink with me over the phone. I think he heard something in my voice since he inquired about my well-being. I informed him that I truly needed a drink and that I wasn't. I gathered all the printouts and headed to the bar without saying anything more. When I got there first, I ordered a beer and 4 shots of Jack. My friend Callum T arrived as I was about to take my final image and inquired about the situation. Straight up, I told him, Mem's cheating. He sympathized with me, so I told him it was Jay and asked if he wanted to know with whom. He got clearly agitated. I met Jay through him, and all he could say was, I'm sorry. Again and over. Jay and I never had a close relationship. Although we wouldn't approach each other to hang out, we would be cordial if we ran into one another at an event. Since I had only recently learned about this and hadn't even consulted M or a lawyer, I advised T not to bring it up with anyone. I requested him to keep it a secret from his wife, and to tell her that I was having issues at work if she ever inquired what was wrong with me. He concurred. For the most of the evening, we drank and spoke. Then at about 3 a.m, I called an Uber and left. For the first time since I'd spoken to T, I checked my phone, and to my surprise, there were several missed calls and numerous texts from M inquiring about my whereabouts, my expected return time, and my general well-being. She was dozing on the couch when I arrived home. I simply strolled into our bedroom and closed my eyes. She was in the bed when I woke up. So I got dressed and walked out of the house. I went to get my car, went to work, and spent the entire day working. I returned home at around 10 o'clock in the evening. My wife surprised me by showing up to welcome me and telling me she had prepared dinner. I told her that I didn't want it heated up. I went to bed after telling her no. Not long later, she asked what was wrong with me. I told her I wanted to go to bed and that she should leave me alone. She persisted in bothering me. I finally lost it and cried out, "Mem, stop. My goal is to go to sleep. Leave now." Confirmed and prepared for the day after receiving an email from the lawyer the following morning requesting a later meeting time. When I came downstairs to depart, Em was making breakfast and wanted to talk. Bared a little plate and took a seat. She began by stating that I had been acting differently and that she was curious as to why I had changed. I told her that although work had been hard, it will soon come to an end. After I was done, I informed her I had to leave. I walked to my office and began to tally the minutes till the lawyer's appointment. I told my assistant I was off to lunch with a client as I was leaving. Sometimes my wife would phone me at work. After our successful meeting, I gave the attorney all the material I had collected on her, and he said, "Well, I'm sorry for all that's going on, but I'm happy you gathered all this information. Since we live in an at-fault state, your wife is not entitled to the majority of your money, as you can see." I told him I was thinking I had to get a divorce from her as soon as possible and hadn't even considered it. He requested to keep the proof, but I informed him that I would rather he simply create copies because I haven't yet told my wife and I don't want to hear her justification. He nodded and had his helper to copy something. "When will she be served with papers?" I inquired. He gave me a 2-week timeline. After thanking him, I walked away. I confronted my wife at home. I called her since she wasn't home when I got there. Not a response. I gave another call. Not a response. "I don't give a f if you're writing Jay right now. Get home." I texted her. "We must have a conversation." And sure enough, she phones me right after, wanting to know what I was talking about. My only advice to her was to get home now. "Wow, look at that. 15 minutes, I said to her when she finally came. "Isn't that roughly the same distance from here to Jay's place?" She gave me a perplexed expression. I gave her a minute to compose herself. All she could do was stare at me. "Well, nothing to say?" I asked. I allowed her to carry on despite her attempts to gaslight and deny me. She got all worked up and began to make fun of me. I grabbed the proof and gave her a hard fist to stop talking. I initially held it up to you and exclaimed, "Look at this mountain of things I gathered on you." I then proceeded to show her each paper individually. Then she began to cry and ordered me to stop. She said she loved me and made an attempt to apologize. "Honey, where's that energy you had before?" I asked. "Just a minute before, you were so determined to criticize and denigrate me." She made an attempt to give me a hug and apologize. I extended my hand to say, "Don't touch me." She replied, "Well, go to the bedroom and do whatever you like." Promised her, "Sweetheart, I will never touch you again," as I met her eyes with mine. Are you curious as to who else possesses these images and messages? My attorney. I'm ending our marriage. Now pack your things, grab a suitcase, and leave my house like an F. She didn't get back to me after that 3 days ago. I apologize for the length of this and any typos in the spelling. I'm interested in people who have been in my situation. What should I anticipate from this? How do you interpret this? Tell me in the comment section below, please. Thank you for being here with us today. In order to make sure your next chef stays faithful, subscribe to our channel. The next story is nothing compared to what's coming, so stay tuned. But I strongly warn avoiding listening to the next story if you're younger than 18.